All right. Whoa. I turned this little thing off here, but so we were talking here, and Hack said, "Hey guys, at least we did a good job handicap." To which I responded, "I wish our wallets agreed with that." I don't think any of us really connected on anything today, and it was actually pretty brutal. I think from a betting standpoint, but Pack, give me some good news. What did we get right?
We were all over British Idiom, I think. We had the fade on Kimura pretty right, I think, as taking her off the top. And I think in general, we were a little skeptical as a group of Dennis's moment. We didn't skeptical the right direction necessarily, but I think we were all a little skeptical of the pace setup might be a little wonky in that race and might get a little interesting. And I think overall we sort of had a bit of an understanding that the Euros we felt were weak this year compared to Euros of previous years. And I think if you just tossed the Euros, you would have been doing pretty well overall. The Euros kind of had a rough day, and yeah, in general, that Santa Anita's a bit of a interesting track from a pace setup scenario. You got to be a little on or just off. And yeah, I think we had a general understanding. Now, did we connect on the right horses necessarily? No, I mean obviously you had to be pretty deep in some of these races to come up with some of the big prices. But I think we had a generalized understanding that it was going to be a bit of an interesting Friday. Let's put it that way.
You're gonna do great in married life with the way that you danced around. Just how fucking awful we actually.
Yeah, we were shit. We were bad.
But we learned.
Yeah, we learned things.
Yeah, we learned that apparently the softest spot on the Santa Anita track was the like 3x3 square right in front of Dennis's moment. Apparently,
That's a tough break.
yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
I pretty much um I had and we talked a little bit about this. And actually, I wasn't planning on looking at pull it up here. Um, I had two real big key horses that I was trying to play around here. Um, and then I actually ended up adding a third um, because I saw some real good value there, and none of it came to fruition. The three piece achieved in the sixth race. I keyed just a friggin' ton of stuff around that horse, and horse got shuffled and just was like never really involved. And then the I believe it's the three Shannon in the eighth race also keyed a bunch of stuff around the course. Because what did they Shannon floated up to what, like 30 to 1 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got like my eyes got big as like fucking watermelons. I was like, oh, I'm all in on this at 30 to 1. But yeah, neither of those really worked out for me.
But Josh, put it this way: when we talk about all of our bad beats and the rough day that the three of us had in general, somebody on Discord still had a worse beat on the day. So
I honestly thought you were gonna go towards the maximum security DQ. And I started having all kinds of flashbacks and um, actually, so funny story. So my brother and I we went to the OTB today, out there in just outside Chicago. It's like in this Italian restaurant or whatever. Um, and trying to pull up the horse, Graceful Kitten. So my brother, I don't know what he saw, but he was all in on Graceful Kitten, and Graceful Kitten I think was floated up. He was just like, oh, I don't even know how much money he had going through Graceful Kitten. I think he had exactas and everything keyed in exactas, and what fucking happens? Well, Kitten is loose, looks like about to pull away, and goes and nosedives straight into the rail for no apparent reason. I have never seen my brother so upset. He literally like screamed at the TV in front of everybody, and then literally like for the next hour and a half was just, can you believe that six? Just like every couple minutes, just bringing up that six, and I I was like, ooh. Like I didn't really have anything to tell him because the horse didn't even like I don't even know, nothing scared the horse. The horse just dove in and hit the rail for some reason.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought he might have got bumped. Horse just lugged in real bad, and jockey had to pull up, avoid going over the rail. So it's another tough beat. I think that's kind of the theme of the day is not necessarily bad beats, but just trips. There was a lot of races today that horses that might not have been the best ended up winning just because they got a really good trip. Where a lot of good horses or potentially stronger horses did not get the trip. I mean, Structor is a great example of that earlier, who set a perfect trip right off the speed. The leader ducks into the rail, creates a hole. Structor goes right up through and just hangs on. Whereas Decorated Invader is probably the best horse in that race, coming from pretty far out of it, swinging wide. Similar to Arizona, Peace Achieved got sawed off bad. So when you get these big fields, it's pretty tough.
I was going to say, you could say, I thought Arizona was probably the best horse. The horse went about 12 wide, coming off the corner, got thrown way, way wide, and had to make this just, kind of lost a ton of ground around the final corner. And I thought really kind of, did really well to close as hard as he did. I think, the thing that I was saying in the consistency today was there are certain jocks who are a little more positionally aggressive, who are, getting a break, getting their horse to the rail. It seems like Santa Anita, you really have to be on the rail. You can't, do the Kentucky thing and float 4 or 5 wide around the corner and still be able to close on that track. And it just feels like that Santa Anita straight is, I don't know, it feels like it's just super short, that those closers just really don't have that time to really develop that momentum and to close in on these fields. So you have to be on or just off the pace. I don't think we saw all day a single horse on either the dirt or the turf come from more than maybe 3-4 paths off the leader. So it's I think you have to look at your handicapping tomorrow, and I'm going to go through after we get off here and do another pass and really look and say, okay, I'm going to probably move my Euros in general down a little bit. I think we talked about this being a weak Euro contingent, and I think most of them it showed today that it's a weaker contingent that came over. And I'm going to also move up those E and those EP types even more aggressively than I had in my initial handicapping, just because the track definitely is playing that way.
So in that BC juvenile race, since we're the juvenile, was it the juvenile turf? What was the inquiry on? I didn't have a real good view.
The inquiry was on the horse that hit the rail, I think.
No. It was on the 13 cut off somebody like around the turn.
Because I know they said it was outside of the top 5, therefore they made it official, but the stewards were still investigating it. That's what they said over the PA.
Yeah, the 13 cut somebody off. Okay. I forget who
was that. The 3, the 3. I think it smashed. Because I saw the 3 got shuffled kind of randomly there, and I don't know if that's what it was or what was going on. It was just weird. They looked at it for a while, and we at the OTB they don't. Once the race is over, they cut the sound off. So I'm just trying to look at this TV and trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
It might have been the 14. It was one of those 2 outside horses. I don't remember what it was, but it didn't affect pretty much anything. But yeah, they looked at it.
So which horse did you think you guys impressed you the most today? That actually kind of lived up to the billing, or maybe just had the best performance here?
I would probably have to say British Idiom, just given what we've seen. She ran a good race. Like we said, nobody was really closing all day today at Santa Anita, not from way out of it. And she was probably the only one that came from more than a couple lengths off the pace. I was also very impressed with Donna Veloce up in the race. Ran the race that she did, to rate, take dirt, go wide around the tiring leaders, and just barely get beat by a good horse in British Idiom. I think that both of those horses impressed me, and are 2 that I'll be kind of watching down the road, because that was a very professional race from both British Idiom and Donna Veloce.
Yeah, so for me, I think it was Structor, quite honestly. The horse was kind of sat in behind, got that nice pocket trip and everything else. I mean, obviously it's partially a trip dependent race, but for a 2-year-old to be able to blow through that kind of a hole, make that really top of the stretch, that aggressive move outside, blow through a hole and really take over a race and then hold on late. I like that. I like that explosive turn of foot. I think that horse is a horse that's going to be a legit, maybe up to a mile and a quarter type coming in next year. I thought that was a real impressive performance. Another really loaded horse out of Chad's barn, to me, albeit I don't know what the fig will come back. I don't know how it comes back competitively. I thought, considering the field that was in that race and the ability to really, tactically snap and take that race over, that to me is really impressive for a 2-year-old to do.
Yeah, I was leaning pretty much on British Idiom. I thought that that was probably that British Idiom and crap, why am I blanking? Donna Veloce. I think that like duel down the end of down the stretch. I think that was probably the most exciting kind of end to a race, and I was actually kind of that was like probably like the one ticket that I actually was like live on for a second. So I was like, oh, well, finally I hit something, and Doctor kicked me out. But
we'll say though that British Idiom race, that was the best race on the card. If you want to talk about action, you want to talk about a number of horses that I'm excited to see Bast in British Idiom and Donna Veloce. I'm excited to see all their next races. I'm excited to see that develop into a rivalry. I think that race is, it hopefully sets that up. So.
I was just looking at something.
Mm-hmm. I thought 4-wheel drive also ran a very professional race. Track profile played to his favor, to be sure. Once he got clear, it was always going to be tough to run down, but he was never really threatened. Took him all the way, and that was a nice race on his end. I mean, Wesley Ward has an awful nice pair of turf sprinters really a nice trio if you want to throw Cambria in there, but a nice pair of turf sprinters with 4-wheel drive and Kamari.
Yeah, and actually, so now I remember what I had. I had a point in my head, and I just didn't remember what I was trying to make. Actually, another thing that kind of did impress me a little bit in that the juvenile fillies was that Bast actually held on for third there. The way that the pace kind of set up, I know they slowed down a ton in the end. I don't know if that was the track or the pace or whatever, but as soon as I saw Bast involved in that pace duel, then they were 3 wide. I was like, "There's no way that this horse is going to win." But disputed the pace, and finished third, but didn't finish like completely out of it. I mean, there was obviously a huge difference between the 6th and the 3rd, but I definitely think that those 3 horses are a cut above the rest that was in that race. So,
yeah, I think Bast is going to get a lot of crap for not running well there. But she was like 4th betting choice. I think she was bet appropriate to her performance, and I thought it was a terrible ride. I thought Bast would get the trip Donna Veloce ended up getting in that race, where she sits just off the dueling leaders in the pocket, right behind them, just wide. I don't know if that was instructions from Baffert to Johnny to get the horse involved earlier, or what the deal was, but going on the lead between horses, with a quick opening quarter, was never going to be a recipe for success in that race for Bast. So I don't know what to make of her, but I don't think the race was as bad as it looked. I think it was a very questionable ride.
Yeah, I don't think Johnny V had that great of a day today, huh? After I was extolling his consistency and his ability to stay out of trouble and how he always gives good rides, and then he fucking just onto the bigger names, I think, gave pretty questionable rides. Although I guess. Well, no, even the 8 rings right wasn't very good. But 8 rings could just not. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on to tomorrow? I mean, I would definitely like to get this out of my memory.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. I want this to be over with.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look over at the 9th race, the BC. So if you guys haven't watched, we do have another video up that we did, I believe, Wednesday night, where we covered the first 5 races of the BC races on Saturday. So take a look at that. So we're going to start here at the BC Mile, which is going to be the late pick 4, 9, 10, 11, 12 here. Um, so, Pack, why don't you take a first shot at this one?
Oh man.
That was totally me
me,
passing, by the way, because I was just like, I don't know yet.
I don't want to touch this. Yeah. No, I think this is. I think all kind of looked at this off camera and kind of said this is one of the weaker versions of the BC Mile in recent memory. There's no standout here. There's no monster. There's not that horse that you go, ooh, I'm really excited to see this. The Goldakovas of the world or whoever it is that are legit, high end horses. And I think I ended up landing here probably on some pretty obvious horses. Circus Maximus, he's been a legit horse. When he brings his A game, he's really, really good. He's lived at the top of the European G1 circuit forever. He occasionally, he's not a horse that's amazingly consistent, but when he brings his A game is pretty darn good. And versus the field here, it might just be enough to get it done. The other horse that I wanted was Alada Uni. I mean, she's been absolutely lights out since ended up in the Chad Brown barn. 9-17 lifetime, won a ton of money. She's been consistently running versus the boys and absolutely kicking their asses. She's been been really, really, really good. I think she's probably a little compromised in here by her race strategy or by her kind of the pace setup, her run style. But she's a horse that's just so classy that I feel like I sort of have to use her. And the third horse that I want the most of is going to be quite the price in here, and that's the 10 horse Without Parole. Horses moving to the Chad Brown barn off a long layoff, off from finishing 14th by 51.5 lengths out the last time at Newbury. To me, that screams horse bled. And they shipped him to the United States and had a long layoff. And moves into the Chad Brown barn. Chad spots his horses really well. You're getting 20-1 on the morning line here to figure out if this horse actually belongs. But these are the kind of spots I'm totally willing to take that kind of. And Arad stayed here, and honestly, the Ortiz brothers both had some real good rides in the day. I think they were, did pretty darn well considering. So those are the three that I want the most of. I'll talk it over to one of you guys, and you can talk about how you're looking at it.
Well, I guess I'll take a shot. I actually really agree with you on the 10 horse Without Parole. One thing that I've noticed that Chad loves to do, take these horses who have a real bad race, and in my assumption, I'm usually guessing that the horse bled, because this has happened with just like random French horses that all of a sudden are showing up in Chad's barn, and you look at their last race and you're like, okay, this horse finished last, back by like 20 lengths. What the hell's Chad doing with this horse? They shoot him up with Lasix, and all of a sudden the horse is just different animal. Another thing, frequent move with Chad is especially if it's a French horse or a horse that's running constantly getting good to soft ground. Maybe the horse just wants firm ground, and there's not going to be any firmer ground than Santa Anita, with the exception of maybe Gulfstream Park. But this is a Frankel, and I mean, this is just like as pure of a turf pedigree as you can probably get with a Lemon Drop Kid dam. So yeah, I mean, I think that they must have seen something in this horse. The horse has won a couple of, or at least one Group 1. So yeah, this, especially at 20-1, you're getting Chad and Irad. I think this is definitely a good long shot. I'm kind of with you though, Pack. I didn't really step too outside the box here. I'm gonna want, just like you, I'm gonna want Circus Maximus, who is a very legit miler, coming from overseas. I'm also going to want a little bit of Uni, who, if they do get some kind of setup, will definitely be the deep closer. I know the track didn't exactly play to that today, so I'll watch a couple more races tomorrow. And if it's still playing that way, then I'll probably move Uni down. The other horse is also going to be one of the favorites that I am interested in is the 6 Got Stormy. That Woodbine Mile was just a kind of a weird race. The winner that races in here, El Tormenta. But even though Got Stormy lost, still ran a really good race. If Got Stormy runs anything remotely close to their 4-star Dave effort, I think that wins this race, or at least puts puts her in contention with Circus Maximus. So, hopefully, I mean, 7-2, I think is on the absolute like low end on what I would want to take on this horse. I do think that she's got a shot, but hopefully there's a couple other horses here that take a little money, especially if someone like Uni takes some money and goes down, goes lower in odds. If I see Got Stormy floating up closer to 4-1 or something like that, 4-1, 5-1, I definitely think that's gonna be something that I'm gonna want to take a look at.
Yeah. So sorry, I tried to jump in earlier, and I agree with you guys. Well, I agree with you on Without Parole, the 10 horse. It's one of those Chad Brown Witness Protection Program horses that come out of nowhere, and just usually run big. This horse was running in some legit G1s, back in June and summer of 2018. Up against Lightning Spear, Roaring Lion, Almond Eye, Poet's Word. Those are legit grade 1 kind of horses that would all be massive favorites here. So I think this horse, Chad Brown, has a lot of places he could have put this horse. And for him to think highly enough to actually make this horse in the Breeders' Cup Mile off of the layoff first start in America, I think this one's live. I don't think this horse would be here if Chad didn't think the horse could win. So I completely agree. I don't know that we'll get 20-1, but I do really like that horse. And just due to the value proposition it offers, I think that horse has to be an A for me. Where I probably disagree, I'm going to take a stand against Uni in this race. I was sort of against her to begin, but the two trends, I've noticed from today in the turf races is that you don't want to have a very wide draw and you don't want to be coming from very far off the pace. That's not to say you had to be on the lead or going wire to wire, but usually horses that were winning were horses that were able to save ground and then find a hole, turn it for home, and be within 2 lengths of the leaders, when they fire. And, in her last couple of races, Uni was 11 lengths off the lead, 17 lengths off the lead, 4 lengths off the lead, and 19 lengths off the lead. And I just don't see her being in a position that she's going to have, a puncher's chance turning for home when you have a 13 horse field or 14 horse field coming from that far back, trying to navigate traffic and trying to close. At a short price, I think this horse is going to get bet quite a bit. And that's one I'm going to take a stand against, I think, based mostly on run style and on the outside draw. She needs, quite a good break and a good run from Rosario in order to, find her way to the front here. I do like Circus Maximus. Then I'm debating whether I want to maybe down this horse a touch, just given the performance of the Euros today. But this horse was trading punches with Too Darn Hot a couple races back, trading wins, and that's a very good European miler. I do think that this one is best at a mile. They tried stretching him out a few times, in the Judd1 International and back there a couple times in June at Epsom, and it just didn't seem to work. I think despite the pedigree being on top, I think the bottom side is from Duntle. This one's really more of a miler, kind of like his dam. So I think this one may appreciate the firmer ground here. I think the mile's the right distance, but the tighter turns and the faster pace is going to be a bit of a question for Circus Maximus. And I don't like the price at 3-1. I hope this one floats up, and I think he might, but one that I'm considering using. But yeah, my top pick though is actually Got Stormy. I think this horse is really good. The 4-star Dave was really good. And the Woodbine Mile, I think, was just jockey moved a little bit too soon, a little bit too early, and ended up getting run down by El Tormenta, who was 40-1 that race and had a very, very good ride and very good trip. Staving all the ground and then coming up, just getting past got Stormy late. I also think it's possible that she may have bounced off that 4-star Dave effort where she ran a pretty big number. But I don't think her Woodbine Mile was really bad at all. And I do think she has the right kind of run style where has an inside draw and she does project to sit pretty close, but not on the pace and probably get first run on some of the deeper closers. So Got Stormy's my top pick. I'll also be using, like we said, Circus Maximus, and then Without Parole is my top 3. There's 1 or 2 others that I'll probably have on some B and C tickets underneath, but they're probably not going to get nearly as much as the top 3 I mentioned already.
Yeah, our resident quarter horse expert DJ Vasquez over here is asking him what we think about the 5 True Valor here. Was that one of the horses that you were going to use a little bit of, Caleb?
So it was not. I looked at True Valor. The horse just doesn't seem fast enough, but it is improving. So I wouldn't talk somebody off that horse per se. It's coming off of a grade 3 and a grade 2 stakes win. Horse like Santa Anita. It does seem like a true miler and gets a nice stalking trip, I would imagine. But right now, I just think the horse is a little bit too slow. I'm not super impressed with the quality of fields. I mean, Ohio, Leken, Prince Earl, Sharp Samurai. I mean, these are decent grade 3, type horses, but I'm not super impressed enough to put them in a spot like this. The 2 that I was considering using was actually the 13 Hey Gaman, which is one that I think is interesting at a price. I think you'll get every bit of 12 to 1 unless the horse takes money just due to Frankie or Filet the Tory. But I do think that if you scratch out the races where he had soft ground, the form looks a lot better. I just think this horse has wanted firm turf the entire time and might finally get that here. And watch any of the replays, this horse does have some early speed. I'm not sure if he has U.S. early speed because the Europeans typically don't get out of the gate quite as quickly. But the horse does have speed, so I think Frankie should be able to get this one out and then get him over to save some ground. And then the other long shot I was looking at was actually El Tormenta. The horse is going to be completely disrespected on upset Woodbine. But the horse also has some early speed. And with the right kind of trip, I could see it sneaking home and getting first run on some of these others. Logicals don't into some traffic. El Tormenta has enough speed to get him out of trouble and set a nice trip. And Gail Cox rarely ships here or ships anywhere in the States for that matter, unless she has a. So I think this is Rico De Silva's last race before retirement. So it'd be good to see him get one on a personal note. But yeah, that's the other horse I'd probably be looking at.
And if for some reason if you don't follow Woodbine at all, Eurico Rosa De Silva is been the leading rider up there for probably 3-4 years now. He's pretty much lights out up there. So the guy does know how to ride if you don't recognize.
So the only other horse in here that we haven't mentioned that I want a little piece of is Sudi. The Sujui, I think it actually is pronounced, the one horse on the
inside. You're
the
horse pronunciation expert over there, so.
Second time Lasix had a brutal trip last time out, was floated. They have an 8 path here at the quarter, is what it's listed as, and I think that seems about right. So kind of a real rough trip last out in the Shadwell. Second time Lasix actually can be an improvement angle. Figs fit. The horse ran has been a couple years back, done well in the BC a couple of times, running some figs that would be legit in this field, and quite honestly used that Shadwell as a prep in 2017 for the BC turf, and didn't run that much slower this time out, even with a brutal trip, than did back then. So JJ takes him out, somebody who's an aggressive type of rider, who's an aggressive positional rider, and quite honestly, the type of horse I think you want at Santa Anita, a horse that can be a little more involved from the get-go, has that ability to have some early pace and not be a mile out of it, but to be sort of on up the pace, maybe can be 2-3 lengths off, and and close late. So that would be the other price that we haven't mentioned. I think Caleb mentioned all the other ones I want. And I do also that 5 we mentioned. I do want a little bit of that 5 myself, but a really tiny little bit.
I just want to mention real quick a horse that I know that Caleb hates. Just completely. There's a fire burns inside of him against his horse. But depending on how the track plays tomorrow, the track is playing a little bit more fair. If we see a couple of horses come off the pace, one horse that I am a little interested in, much less than Uni, but same run style, going to be the 14 Bowie's Hero. Bowie's Hero, as I believe Caleb was the way you described him. I believe a trashy West Coast turf horse. But Bowie's Hero has done pretty well at Santa Anita. 6 times in the money out of 9 tries. So this will definitely be a horse, I think, if it's playing a little bit more fair and I'm trying to play something vertical, I'm going to definitely use. One thing that I do want to point out, we had talked a little bit about Flavien Prat stealing one of these races. I thought that there was maybe a chance that this was the race he was going to steal, and then he went ahead and did what he did in the last race today. So I don't know if he still got one in him, but that Shadwell Turf Mile win was pretty good. I mean, the pace was a little bit on the hot side, not crazy fast, but there was pace there to run into, unlike some of the the East Coast races. So I see it kind of setting up a little bit similarly, but I still think that I'm going to want someone that's a little bit more forwardly placed, I think. So I think I agree with Caleb where of the Americans, Scott Stormy is going to be my top choice, along with Circus Maximus. So why don't we move on to the distaff here, race 10, mile in the 8th. I believe I'm going to steal our boy Pack's thunder here. When we take a look at this race, there's really one big time speed horse in here. Now, I mean, yeah, there's Mosi Cal is entered in here, and I see Mosi Cal a little bit more as a cheaper speed type horse. I really like Serengeti Empress a lot. I think that this might set up similarly to her Oaks win, and I think that she's got a shot to wire this, especially with the way the track was playing today. She's a little bit further out. She's in the 9 hole. But there's not that much speed, I think, signed up inside of her. Mosi Cal's outside of her, so I think that she'll be able to get over and get a little bit more inside in a better spot. So I'm really interested in Serengeti Empress here. If things do get dumb, I am going to go back to the Street Band well here. I think that that last race that she won, why am I forgetting, blanking on the name? The Cotillion, set up perfectly. I mean, that was such a great ride by Sophie Doyle. Just sat there off the pace and just rallied out wide. And like I said, if the track is playing a little bit more fair, I think that this will set up nicely for someone coming slightly off the pace. If it's a little bit more speed favoring like it's been playing, I definitely am going to want somebody like Serengeti Empress who's going to be right up on the lead. I mean, Midnight Bisou is obviously a monster, is going to be the favorite here and definitely the deserving favorite. So if I am playing horizontally, definitely going to be using Midnight Bisou. Don't get me wrong. I know I talked about 2 other horses before her, but Midnight Bisou is the real deal. And then I think I might play a slight fade on Dunbar Road here, which I know I'm sure Pack is going to want to chastise me for.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you. I think Midnight Bisu, she's had undefeated campaign this year. She's been an absolute monster, done absolutely nothing wrong. Her personal ensign was probably the race of the year at Saratoga. She's just been an absolute lights out horse. Just been really, really phenomenal. She's definitely an A on my tickets. And also I think with how the track's playing, and also Serengeti Empress was very good to me in the spring. I still have a bit of a soft spot for her, but I think with how Santa Anita tends to play, I think she's a horse she's going to be on the lead. I think she may be very loose on the lead in this race, and she may get real brave in the lane if Pratt can slow this down and play games on the front end, which he's prone to do. And I could see this being another one of those races that Flavin sort of steals on the front end. I know Josh was poking me about Dunbar Road. Of the three A's I have, Dunbar Road is the one that needs to improve the most, but she'll be an A on my tickets. I've had a soft spot for this horse since ever before she even ran, and have been betting her all along, and she's been very, very good to me. Her Alabama was just amazingly impressive. And if you look at that spinster that she just had an absolute terrible trip. It was stuck down inside, didn't want to be there. That's not where you wanted to be on that day. And I think JJ probably didn't have the best ride on her that day, quite honestly. So with that being said, I still want to give her another shot. I think obviously she's a 3-year-old going versus the olders. Well, I guess there's also a couple other 3-year-olds in here, but I know Josh did mention Street Band as well. Another horse that I want a little bit of. She's not, hasn't quite had those really blowout performances. But horse that can be forwardly placed. If they get a little stupid on the front end, she can kind of get that first one to pounce sort of an angle. And I like a little Street Band in here as well. I know Street Band has sort of been the sort of hype horse, sort of the works horse, and the one that sort of the wise guy horse, I think in the distaff this year seems to be the one that I'm hearing a lot of buzz about. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty in line on this race, actually. I'm super excited to bet Serengeti Empress. So in this race, I'll tell you now, I'm going to have who I think is the best speed horse and then the two best off the pace horses. And that's probably all I'm going to use. Serengeti Empress is the speed horse in any race she goes in. She's fast. And I think, the 10, Mosey Cow, I go with her. Paco Lopez getting on, maybe he might whip her out of the gate just to get her on the front. But I just don't think she's fast enough. Secret Spice may play a role in the pace, but she can't get a mile. Has no chance to go a mile and an eighth. She should have went to the sprint, but I don't think she can go with Serengeti either. So I could realistically see a chance Serengeti. And I think that's super dangerous. She's the definition of a need to lead horse, but if she does get out on the front, she doesn't need to go slow. If you look at her test and her Acorn, those were races where she just happened to find one better, but she set some crazy fast fractions and still held on pretty respectably. So I'm completely with you guys there. Midnight Bisu is obviously the horse to beat in this race, but I do think it's one of those instances the figures don't necessarily tell you the same. She's 7 for 7 this year. Undefeated, or what is it, 5 different tracks. So she ships well. She handles all different surfaces, handles different distances from a mile to a mile and an eighth. But she doesn't run particularly that fast, or at least not that much faster than what others have run in here as well. I like her. I think that she's probably the likeliest winner. She just seems to be one of those fillies that knows where the wire is and just always finds a way to give a little bit more. But I do think she could be a little vulnerable here, and I think she's going to get bet as if she's a lock. So I will be using her prominently, but I'm not going to be singling her. The other horse I liked is that we've already mentioned. I think this horse is really good. The Spinster was actually probably her best race. If you factor in the speed figure came back strong, and she was stuck on what was a pretty dead rail for most of the Keeneland meet. And just not the best ride, not the best. And I think that drawn outside, she has enough speed here to, just sit off of the leaders if they do happen to go quick early, and maybe Paradise Woods joins up with Serengeti and a few others. And she needs to improve, sure, but I don't think that's out of the question. Horses often take a big step forward after running a race on the rail. Typically, does improve their conditioning, and I think this is one who could be sitting on a really nice race. I guess my soft fade would be Street Band. We gave this horse out last time at the Cotillion, and she was good. I think Josh was really high on her. I kind of liked her as well. And she looked good, really good in that race. But that's the race you wanted to have, Street Band. She got the perfect setup. There was a nuclear pace, and she got a very, very good ride by Sophie. Oftentimes underrated. I don't know that I see that develop again here, and I think she's going to be the buzz horse and the hype horse, and probably be a little bit shorter than I want for her in a spot like this. But that's pretty much where I ended. And they might be 3As, and I just may not go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all kind of saw it, saw the race a little bit. Probably stop zooming in on Caleb since he's drinking. Yeah, I mean, the other horses in here, nothing really like excites me. If I want a speed horse, I mean, you want Serengeti that knocks out, maybe like 3 or 4 of these other horses. And then yeah, I mean, there's only a handful of real like closers in here, but I don't think that you want like a deep closer like a La Force. I think he's gonna be trying to come from way too far off of it. Like maybe gets a piece of 4th or something, but as far as like win contenders, I think that we pretty much see this race the same. So obviously that means that Blue Prize is gonna win this. We're all agreeing on this one.
I was gonna say, does anybody want a little bit of Blue Prize? That's the one I might B or C on this race.
I'll tell you what, though, the other one that, God, I don't want to even go here. Works on Wildcat were phenomenal coming into this as well, albeit she's consistently shown she's just not good enough and doesn't like winning. She also had some legit work. So, I mean, if you want to get a little cute in here, I think there's some horses you could use and try to build a ticket around.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and stay pretty skinny here with just the Midnight Bisou and a little bit of Street Band and Serengeti. I mean, Midnight Bisou is the most likely winner. I don't want to get too cute like we did when we started talking about Sister Charlie and we named like 20 horses. Shout out to Evil Bob Dole. Let's move on to the BC Turf here. 11th race, 1.5 miles. And the way the track played today has got the wheels spinning in my head a little bit. Caleb, why don't you take first shot at this one?
Well, if you'll take notice, I am wearing my. I tried to beat Zulu Alpha, and all I got was a T-shirt shirt after the Kentucky Downs race. So we'll come back to that. To lead into your question, I think that Acclimate becomes a must-use in this race, the 2-horse. It's both a function of the fact that there's not very much speed in this race. The only other horse that really looks like they're going to want the lead might be Bandua, the 8. And beyond that, there just isn't a ton of pace, and speed is held respectably well on the turf. I mean, that really isn't a surprise. But Acclimate's one of those horses. It kind of reminds me of maybe a little bit worse version of Glorious Empire, where this horse likes to go these marathon turf distances. Really seems to be best going. He has a win at 1 3/4 miles. He has a win at 1 3/8 miles. Really likes going these longer races. Doesn't quite have the speed to go a flat mile and make the lead, but can be really dangerous when he gets on the front end going these marathon races. And he doesn't need to set slow fractions to do that. If you look back, I mean, those were honest fractions in both his last race at Santa Anita as well as 2 back at the Del Mar Handicap. And he was first and then a close second in both of those races. So the horse likes to win. He's 4 for 10 at Santa Anita. And I think this horse makes a lot of sense from a pace perspective. 20 to 1 I don't need much reason to be convinced to use a horse that I kind of like. You tell me that he's 20-1. This horse is certainly making my ticket. Uh, but I think it really comes down to, in the grand scheme of things, the race still goes through bricks and mortar. Um, I don't know how I feel about bricks ending up here. I can't shake the feeling that Chad was very hesitant to stick him in a 1.5 mile race for the longest time. And there's probably a reason for that. He shipped him to the Arlington Million and Dancer. Routinely said he doesn't really think that Bricks wants a 1.5 miles. And then he ends up putting him here in the turf. When interviewed about that, he mentioned that he just didn't think that Bricks would be sharp enough to go to the flat mile and the Breeders' Cup Mile. Wouldn't have that explosive turn of foot. He's more of a grinder, wear you down kind of a horse. So Chad ends up here. I mean, I almost want to take a shot. You just saw how soft the Breeders' Cup turf field ended up. There's not really any monsters here. You can steal one against a weak field by all means. But I do think that bricks and mortar up against it with a pretty big question on the distance as well as on the pace perspective. He is one that likes to come from pretty far out of the pace, and that has not been a recipe for success. But I won't be completely fading bricks and mortar. Be on a number of my tickets. But he's one of those horses, again, similar to Midnight Bisou, that people might look at as just a complete lock or the likeliest winner in the sequence. And I don't know that I feel that I see it. I'm curious what you guys think.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll jump in here. Yeah, I mean, when I looked at this, I pretty much was gonna try and get everything through bricks and mortar. There were 3 other horses that I did want a little bit of piece of before I saw the way the track played today. Now my mind's all going all crazy, and I don't know if I'm just like overcompensating for what looked like to be a bias. But I think what I will do is I think I'm going to stick with the horses I had. I'm just going to probably use bricks a little less aggressively. Still use them, still going to be my top pick here. Obviously, the other horses I'm going to want some Anthony Van Dyck. A horse came here as a 2-year-old and ran once in the States for the juvenile turf. Didn't run real well, but has since gone back over to the UK. It's pretty much started off the campaign with 2 real good wins, including the Epsom Derby, or is it Derby? Excuse me. So I definitely think that this horse, Aidan O'Brien is shipping. Aidan O'Brien wants to win one race at least again. So I mean, he has sent over a bunch of his pretty good horses. I think this might be his best shot. I think if there is a time that you try and beat bricks and mortar, it's going to be at the 1.5 mile distance. Anthony Van Dyck likes to be, third, fourth, just sit slightly off the leaders, and then make that run, which I think is going to be a little bit more of an advantage to him than how bricks and mortar tends to, be multiple lengths off the lead. So definitely interested in Anthony Van Dyck. You did mention Bandwa real quickly. Bandwa, it would be strictly a bias play. Ran a real good race at the Arlington Million. Got caught by bricks and mortar. Tried to lull bricks to sleep. By setting a pretty soft pace, but still got caught. But this horse is able to set some decent fractions and still kind of hang in there. The Arlington handicap is obviously the last time he won three back. It was a little bit shorter, was much less of a lower class. It was a grade 3. But I'm gonna go back to the Bandwell and hope that maybe with this softer field, he might get a little bit of class relief from the Shadwell Turf and the Arlington Million, even though Bricks is still in here. But and then the last horse I'm going to want to use is going to be the 10 Old Persian. That Northern Dancer, they were just like a horse that just like ran off, and Old Persian just stuck with it, ran his race on those fast fractions, and closed in and won pretty convincingly. So second time Lasix, I tend to think that I feel a little bit more confident, especially when a horse ships over, wins first time Lasix. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the well a second time. There's always been stories about horses not handling Lasix well. But no, this horse is going to be able to handle Lasix well. Is going to be a stalking type. And once again, I think that that's going to set up for this horse compared to some of these deep closers here.
Yeah, apologies about my internet being a little stupid tonight, but yeah, I would tend to agree. I think Bricks and Mortar, I think you guys cover this race actually very well with how I'm looking at it. I'm going to want most of my money going through Bricks and Mortar. I still think the 1.5 miles is not the distance I want him at. But again, nobody jumps out at me that in this field that I really, really, really love. And I want some of Old Persian, albeit I think after watching today, I'm going to slightly move down horses that have more closery, running styles. Obviously, Bricks and Mortar does, but I think Old Persian wants to be more out of it than a Bricks and Mortar. I had wanted to use more Old Persian, but after watching things today, I think I'm going to kind of move him down a little bit. And I think you guys sort of mentioned all the major players in here. There's a lot of horses that really want to close from way out of it. And so I think I'm going to end up, I think Anthony Van Dyke can be a little bit more involved than some of the other Euros. So I'm definitely going to move him up, want a fair bit of him. And then I'm going to want some of the other horses like, an Acclimate or a Bandua, probably more Acclimate than Bandua, but, a little bit of both of those who, from a pace perspective, play can be a little bit more on the pace. Just from the fact of I really, really worry about those deep closers with Santa Anita. Just that was not working and has not been working all meet. But besides that, I think you guys pretty well covered it from how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. I think Anthony Van Dyke, I don't like him. I really don't want to use him, but I don't really want Bricks and Mortar. But they're just not a strong field, I don't think. What I do like about Anthony Van Dyke, they passed on the arc with this race in mind the entire time. I always like a horse that's actually pointed to a race and it's not sent somewhere as an afterthought. So, I know Aiden has not had the strongest meet in the past few years, but I do think that this horse is one that I'm going to feel kind of dumb if I leave him off and he beats me. I like Old Persian better, for the record, and I'm really more prominently through my tickets. But I'll probably use both of them in some capacity with Bricks and Mortar and Acclimate. And those are probably going to be what 95% of my tickets are involving. And I have to go here. But there's about 6 horses in here that just take turns beating each other. Between Zulu Alpha,
we were waiting for it. Here
Channel Cat, Channel Maker, Arklow, Sadler's Joy is not even in here, but he's one of them. And I think it's Zulu Alpha's turn to win. I've been against this horse forever. I don't like this horse particularly, but out of all of those American underachieving grade 3 types, he's the one that drew the best. He's the one who has arguably the strongest jockey. I think Jose Ortiz specifically had some really good rides today, some ground saving trips. I think Zulu has enough speed to find himself not too far out of it. He's not going to get hung wide. And that last race was weird. Sadler's Joy was like up on the pace. They were 3 wide for the entire race. And I kind of think Zulu Alpha might just hate Belmont. So it's a stretch, of course, and this horse is a C. But at 20-1, I have a t-shirt that says Zulu Alpha money on him.
Yeah, I was going to kind of trolly ask what everyone's thoughts on Channel Maker going to be after we saw how the track played today.
He'll run third.
He'll get beat. He'll run behind both Arklow and Zulu Alpha somehow.
That draw's tough, and he's not fast enough to make the lead. He should get a good trip if Acclimate makes the lead and Banduous it's just off. Channelmaker has the speed to get up, clear, and get over. But he just hasn't been the same horse since last year. I just don't think he's good enough right now to win this race.
Still chasing that TG fig, huh?
Still chasing the -1, dude.
Oh, I think we beat this one. I mean, like when we talk about betting strategy with this race, I feel like this is like if you like I have a hard time with this race because Bricks is the kind of horse that you either want to single or you want to try and beat and spread. But I feel like this might be one of those times where it's like, okay, if you got Bricks as your A, like you're gonna want to spread a little bit with some B's because I just have no idea what's gonna happen stretching out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think as far as the sequence goes, other singles I have more confidence in. I mean, Midnight Bisou, for as much as I love Dunbar and Serengeti, I mean, Bisou I think is a stronger single. Personally, a stronger single than Bricks. There's a few here that I would rather have single to Bricks and more, but we'll see.
All right, let's move on to the Classic. Mile in the Quarter on the dirt. Man, I've tried to look at this race over and over and over again and not come up with McKenzie as my pick. And then I watched today and I still have a hard time not having McKenzie as my pick here. I mean, the horse is just super consistent. Yeah, if you look at their form, has lost some races that obviously has no business losing. But if you look on the thoroughgraphs, I mean, always just throwing up -3s, -2s, which just absolutely just towers over this field. I mean, the only two other horses that I'm going to want to have any of is going to be Vino Rosso. Because if for some reason McKenzie does bounce, I think Vino is definitely capable of throwing a good figure and winning this race. Has already won at Santa Anita at the Gold Cup earlier this year at this distance. And then the other horse I'm going to want to use is going to be the 2, Seeking the Soul. Now, after watching today, I feel a lot less confident about using Seeking the Soul. So it's going to be more of a watch and see. We'll watch these early races tomorrow, see if they make the track a little bit more fair. But if you look at Seeking the Soul's pattern, Seeking the Soul always tends to peak right at the end of the year. Right around November, runs its best races. Threw up that real good number at the Stephen Foster and, blew the doors off that race. Well, I guess only won by a neck on Quip, but at least figure-wise, threw a really, really good figure. And is just showing the same pattern. Looks like it's building up to this race. And, if Seeking the Soul runs back to their best race here, that is very, very competitive with even McKenzie's best race. The problem I've seen with we talked kind of briefly about how I feel that McKenzie towers over the field. The reason being is the worst figure that McKenzie put up this year is better than most of these horses' best figure. When you have a horse like that towers, that seems to be, at least looking at Brisnet and every other type of horse, it just looks like McKenzie's just loaded to throw their best race here. So I think outside of Sister Charlie, I would say McKenzie's probably going to be the most likely winner on tomorrow's card. But interested to see what you guys have to say.
Yeah, I tend to very much agree with Josh here. I think, to me, the figs on McKenzie, he just towers over everybody here. Effectively, again, his worst fig for the year is almost better than anybody else's best in here. And I think it's really hard. With how the track is playing, you want to be really forwardly placed. he's a horse that's always sort of forwardly placed. You know, I the biggest downside here, I think, is the jock change. You know, who knows what Rosario is going to do on him, and we all know how Rosario gets sometimes on short priced favorites. Um, but yeah, I think I want more McKenzie in here than I really want anybody else. I really think he, you know, as much as I really don't like him as a horse, I think he really towers over this field. And he's also that sort of, I think Josh has mentioned this a couple times before. He's that sort of every other type of horse. He doesn't bring his A game every time, but he seems to win about every other race. Well, didn't win the Awesome again. Should set him up here. You know, his flop in the BC Classic scares me last year, but he's definitely been a lot better at Santa Anita than he has at any other track. You know, the other horses I want, Vino Rosso is a horse that I've slowly warmed to. You know, in his, and honestly, his 2-year-old season and his 3-year-old season, I just thought he was highly overrated. I just thought he wasn't that good. And, you know, I mean, he somehow won the Wood, that he really, you know, that had nobody in the field, and then kind of didn't do anything for the rest of the year until his 4-year-old season where he suddenly got okay. He's progressed. He's a horse that just seems to run better and better every race, and I'm willing to give him a shot here. You know, I definitely want a little bit of my ticket. I think McKenzie will end up being a lone A, and Vino will be a B. And the other one, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, is as a B, is I want a little bit of a late. You know, her best day, her best fig is competitive with this field. If McKenzie brings his best game, Elite can't. She's not competitive, but no one in this field is. You know, the late game is, and this is why you make her B, is that if McKenzie doesn't bring his A game, you know, she's a horse that can be forwardly placed. She's had, she's had some massive races this year. Her personal ensign, I think, was probably the best race of her career. And I think she bounced a little bit in the Spinster and probably improves a little here. She fires back to the figs that she did in that personal ensign. She's competitive in here. Is she good enough to win? You know, historically, the ladies have not done well versus the boys in the Classic, but I don't think this is the strongest Classic field ever. And she's the kind of horse that I'm, you know, sort of okay taking. There's a few others in here that I can use, but they're going to be really, really skinny. They're going to be C's or something like that.
So I have to ask, just watching today's performance, looking back, Baffert did not have a good day. I mean, he got one winner, and I think the second in a turf route for optional claiming 40. And then Bast was, you know, she wasn't bet like she was really a lock, but didn't run all that well, had a poor ride. You know, 8 Rings. I mean, what happened there? Horse was just completely empty, turning for home. I mean, he had a perfect trip and just nothing. And then Baffert even had another horse in the was bet down to maybe third or fourth choice, I think, and it didn't even hit the board. Any concerns about the way the Baffert horses have performed so far with McKenzie, who's kind of already gained a bit of a reputation for being an underachiever?
You know, I think, of the Bafferts, 8 Rings was the one that was the hype horse, but the Works didn't agree with that. So the Works kind of coming into that race were a little bit on the soft side. There are definitely better Works in the field. And honestly, with how that race kind of shook out, you know, the 3 of the 4 longest priced horses on the board were the trifecta. So I tend to, sometimes races like that, you kind of throw it up and go, no, Baffert didn't have a great day, but, this is his home turf. But you're only talking 10 race sample, and maybe he only had 5 or 6 horses. I think it's hard to make a real consistent overview on a real short sample size like that. I'm no Baffert fanboy by any way, shape, or form, but I think I still think McKenzie makes the most sense here, mainly because there's no other horse here that I really am just gonna super excited to get behind. Everybody else here is kind of meh, like okay, it just there's no one here that really gets me excited. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and there is an interesting some interesting stats by Jerry Brown on Thoroughgraphs about how Baffert's horses perform when the Breeders' Cup is in California. And I don't know how much significance I put into that, but his conclusions are essentially that they don't perform well in California, and they perform much better when the Breeders' Cups are out of state. I don't know if there's a different maybe preparation routine he does when he ships or something to that effect. It could be totally meaningless, but it is interesting that there is a noticeable trend there, and that his horses kind of didn't fire today. But I do understand where you're coming from. Mackenzie, as much as I don't like and don't trust the horse, Mackenzie lays over this field on number power, speed figures, has the right run style. I mean, everything makes sense for this horse except for the results, where Mackenzie's lost more races than he should have. He hasn't won at Santa Anita this year, which is a little concerning to me. He's had 3 second places. He doesn't have a win at the distance, but that doesn't really bother me. I was going to try to be against Mackenzie, thinking this horse would get bet off the board. But I did look at the 2-day daily doubles that link up the juveniles with the Breeders' Cup Classic. And looking at the will pays, it really seems like, if you judge off of those polls, that Mackenzie, Vino Rosso, and Coda be very close in price. I'm guessing you'll probably see, 5-2 on Mackenzie, 1 on Vino Rosso. So if that's the case, I don't have as strong of a stance against Mackenzie. Basically, the way I handicap this race is it does come down to those 3 horses. You guys already touched on Vino Rosso. Of course, makes sense here. I'm a little nervous on both Vino. The draw, they ended up getting the parking lot draw far outside. I think it hurts Vino Rosso more honor, because I think wants to take up anyway and just settle in behind horses and make his one. And that one run style has not been. So I think Code of Honor is probably the most nerve taking, especially if he's going to be the same price as Vino Rosso and Mackenzie. But the horse does like to win. Has really turned it on late in his 3-year-old season here. So I will have all 3. I agree with Josh about seeking. I think that horse is sitting on a big race. I'd hate his run style in this. I don't see a ton of speed, and these deep closers don't typically do well at Santa Anita. But I do think he's the value of the race, and that he is fire a big one. He'll be one that I keep, to be sure. Actual pick 5. And then the last horse I would probably look at, and this horse was initially an A for me, and I've moved him all the way down to a C, is the 7 Higher Power. I've been on this horse ever since Classic, where he looked really good. And then I can even forgive his Awesome Again. He stumbled at the gate and had to from farther back than he really wants to against slow fractions. But that Pacific Classic that he looked so good came back really bad. I mean, draft pick, didn't run well. I mean, the strongest horse to come out of that, who ended up winning the Awesome Again, but that, I don't think anyone's really treating him on major contender in this spot. So, I mean, the other horses to come out of that were Tenfold, who hasn't hit the board since. I mean, Campaign, who had a complete dud today at 4-5. I mean, it looked like he had something wrong. Just not a very good Pacific Classic. And that's the only speed fig that makes this field. And if he runs back to that, he fits. And, I can accept the fact that he probably bounced last time and didn't get the best trip. But I'm almost concerned that Pacific Classic was more of an actually the true Higher Power. I think you'll get a decent price on him. I'm afraid it might get, the accelerate angle might get played up a little bit too much, and he's going to get bet too much. But he's one that might make my ticket see that I was much higher a couple days ago.
Yeah, I mean, the one horse in here that I'm 100% against is going to be Code of Honor. Code of Honor has yet to beat Older. I don't care what the fuck the New York stewards say, has yet to beat Older. And I like you said, I don't think his run style fits well here. I mean, you can say the same thing for Seeking the Soul, but I just think that Seeking the Soul is going to be positioned slightly better. And I still think that Seeking the Soul's best race is better than Code of Honors at this point. Not saying Code of Honor is going to be, I mean, assuming races at 4, because who knows what the fuck happens with these horses. Code of Honor, I think, is going to be a real good 4-year-old. I mean, could fire a big race here. I'm not going to want any part of Code of Honor at the price. I've seen, I did some digging yesterday, and I've seen some places where Code of Honor is going off as the favorite, and I just think that that's ridiculous. But you know, I mean, that says a little bit about the older horse division. It says a little bit about the 3-year-old division. Or maybe Code of Honor is just legit. I don't know. I think there's just too many questions. I mean, I would much rather take a Vino Rosso over a Code of Honor at the same price here. And usually when it comes to that, you know, I'm always looking for value, and I just don't see the value in the 11 Code.
Yeah, I very much agree with you here, Josh. I think Code of Honor is a horse that I'm very much against. Just you know, I just don't really see it. You know, he's not done well versus Older, and you know, I understand your beef with the New York stewards. I'm sure that one hurt, but yeah, I agree. And I think my biggest thing with Code of Honor is his run style just really does not fit what works well at this track. He's going to be flying late, and I just think he's going to be way too far off the pace. You know, especially a pace.
Hashtag Nafi.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's just going to be way too far off the pace in here. You know, I'm also very much against Yoshida, who's probably going to take a lot of money because everybody knows the name. Again, horse is going to be flying late, but I think it's going to be way too far out of it. And you know, then I'm also against somebody like War Will, who I just don't think is good enough to really be competitive with. So I hate going into a race saying I'm against more of the field than I'm for. But yeah, I tend to be a little bit that way in this race.
One thing I did want to point out, I was talking with Murphy yesterday, and he actually really likes Owendale here, the 3 horse. Let me see if I can pull up his. Sent it to me. Oh goodness! But then of course you guys decided to go crazy in the group chat, so I think you guys buried it here. But what do you guys think of Owendale here?
Leave it buried.
I think I would rather take an Owendale than some of the other ones that I mentioned that I'm very much against. Owendale isn't a horse that I'm super for either. And he can be forwardly placed. Definitely has a lot of come home speed. Horse that's probably going to sit 3rd or something in this field, kind of a thing. Get a nice tracking trip, drawn inside, so he shouldn't have any of the first corner problems. He should be able to get a nice inside trip. And JJ is very good positionally. I think he's getting a bit of a jock upgrade. His works coming into this were extremely strong. I have him right now as a B. He's a horse that, you know, and I haven't really known what I'm going to do. I'm definitely going to shuffle some stuff around after some of the biases I saw today. He's a horse I want some part of. He's not a horse I'm going to put on top, though. I think there are just, you know, there are better horses sort of in here. I'm sorry, I have him as a C. He may end up as a B, but there's horses in here I want more of than Owendale.
Yeah, I mean, all the respect in the world for Murphy, right? But that's honestly probably the last horse I would take math with Owendale. I just don't see it. So if you like him, slam him because he's going to be a price. But I just think he's a useful grade 3 at Remington or, you know, Ohio Derby kind of horse. I don't think he's going to fit in it.
Come on, you're not a big fan of the Timonium form? Come on now.
I'm pretty sure you're supposed to say, with all due respect, or you go ahead and trash him.
Well, that too.
Yeah, I was all over Owendale earlier in the year, in the Preakness and the Ohio Derby, which he went off his favorite, and in the Travers. I think I learned my lesson, and got off the horse after the Travers. But you know, I ended up coming back and win the Oklahoma Derby. But yeah, as far as a win contender, I don't really think that Owendale tracks here. I
Wait,
mean,
aren't you the Math Wizard fan?
no, that is Chase. Chase is the big,
Oh, is
the
Chase the
big,
Math Wizard?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Chase
I'm
is the
sorry.
big Math Wizard fan. Chase was also trying to make the case for Thace. So I don't know if he was on too many pain pills at the time or what was going on. Um, I will say that late move that Math Wizard made was a heck of a move. I do remember specifically talking about Math Wizard and how great of a job Safi Joseph has done in collecting checks, as the horse had won at by that point like $600,000 or something ridiculous without like winning a race since since January 31st. And then he goes ahead and wins the fucking Pennsylvania Derby. Um, but yeah, I just don't think I don't see it here. The horse is probably going to look best coming from pretty far out of it, and if you want a horse coming from out of it, I think that Seeking the Soul and or Code of Honor are going to be the horse that you're going to.
Oh, let's talk about the pace for just a minute. We've talked about horses don't really work at Santa Anita so far. Mackenzie's kind of a wild card to Rosario, who's not typically known for being an aggressive, front running rider. How do you guys see the pace developing in this race?
So the way I kind of see it going is I think that both Mongolian Groom and War of Will are going to be the horses that are going to try and get the lead. Um, I think either the only chance either of those horses have is to get the lead. I mean, and we're talking like snowball's chance in hell to win this race. But if War of Will doesn't grab the lead, I mean, you might as well just like stop running. Same with Mongolian Groom. So I think those are going to be our two main pace pressures there. Higher power, I guess I could maybe see trying to press it a little bit, but I really think that Mongolian Groom is going to be probably your more likely pace setter. War of Will, maybe, just because he's going to have the slightly better draw.
Yeah, I tend to very much agree with Josh with sort of that Mongolian Groom. Um, and sort of a War of Will on the lead. I think both of them have to sort of make the lead if they're going to really have a chance here. And I think Mackenzie sort of gets to sit that pocket trip. He's going to sit right off, probably him and, Vino Rosso right off him. I think both of them just set a really nice trip behind that early speed. And I think if, Mackenzie doesn't get a stupid jock move like what happened last time out, it falls into his lap. And if he fires, I think it's his race. And if he doesn't, I think Vino gets a really nice setup instead. So, yeah, I mean, I think I don't think it's going to be crazy. I don't think there's going to be a ton of pace on, but I think it's going to be an honest pace. That's why.
Yeah, and I think worst case is if, someone like War of Will or Mongolian Groom gets to the lead and just takes it way too slow. I mean, Vino Rosso doesn't care. Vino Rosso will go ahead and be on the lead. Pretty much almost wired the field, or did wire the field, but was disqualified last time out. So I don't think that Vino really has a problem being on the lead. And as much as we've kind of seen Mackenzie for the most part sit off of it, I don't really think Mackenzie minds being on the lead either. I know, depending on if you believe people have been talking about Mackenzie maybe being more aggressively ridden this time. But I don't really think that I don't think that Mackenzie or Vino are going to get lulled to sleep this time. If there is a slow pace, I think they'll try and grab the lead. If it happens.
Yeah, I will say though that I think obviously Baffert was not happy with that ride on Mackenzie last time out. In the Awesome again, and he went out and got Rosario, which I find to be a really odd fit for Mackenzie. That's not the jock. I mean, obviously you have the best horse in the race. You'd assume you can kind of get whoever you'd want, and you go get Rosario. It feels weird. That's not the jock that I would be super, super interested in getting here. I mean, obviously, like a Jose Ortiz was already taken.
And Johnny
But
V's already taken too, so
Yeah, wouldn't you rather put something like Sayas up there?
Heard Mike Smith's available.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Mike Smith is on Yoshida.
Yeah, and also Mike Smith on Yoshida. That's a hilarious fit, but go on. Of course, Mike Smith could always go Drosselmeyer on us all and make us all look really stupid. So it's happened before.
Look, like the thing about Rosario is, like I said, Rosario is great on the West Coast. Now, whether or not that is the fact that the West Coast colony is just slightly weaker, or if it's just that Rosario knows Santa Anita, I don't know. But if you do recall, there was a 3-year-old this year that Rosario was aboard, where someone decided to take him off because he was too aggressive. So it's not like he doesn't know how to ride a horse aggressively and get it on the lead.
I think he'll have, and this I haven't heard opinion, given the dissatisfaction with the ride last. I think Rosario is going to have clear instructions of what to do with his horse, and it's going to be to get him in the race early. It's not going to be to be passive and let a horse get out there and lope along in front of it. So I would expect to see a more forwardly placed McKenzie. I do think War of Will makes the lead. I think the blinkers going is pretty telling for what this horse wants to do. I think Mongolian Groom probably sits right off of him because I think he has to win this race as if he steals it again, and I think his actions know that. But yeah, I agree. I think it'll be probably some combination of those three on the front with Vino Rosso tucking in with higher power right behind. I don't think it'll be a very fast pace. I think it might be moderate, but touch on the slow side, perhaps. I don't think it'll be.
Yeah, I was going to say, you always hear that thing where they always, interview trainers and, I told them just to make the horse break and then, play it by ear from there. That never actually happens. That's never actually happened in a race. Jocks are given very explicit directions where that trainer wants them and how they want them to ride that horse. And I'm sure Rosario is going to get some very explicit directions on exactly what Bob Baffert wants to have happen. So, but it just it was head scratching to me that why not got Rosario? Like, okay, maybe it's just the fact that he's, the jock, he's been extremely good at Santa Anita, but just kind of, I don't know, things to think about. Especially after the ride he put on, what was Combatant first there. That was a little bit.
Campaign.
Campaign. That was a little interesting.
And then in typical Rosario fashion, he then goes wires a turf route in the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much Bob Baffert, greatest turf trainer ever.
But he was 1 for 1 today, wasn't he?
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, you have to be a good turf trainer in order to win a G1 and not even realize your horse
was entered. Yeah. You used a word in there, trainer. That would be the key word with Bob Baffert, because I probably shouldn't go into this because I'll get a bunch of hate speech. But yeah.
Anything else you guys want to touch on for tomorrow?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is going to be the fact of I'm going to be doing a lot of moving horses around after what I saw today. I would imagine the track will play very similar to what it played as today. I don't think they're going to go out there and try to, tweak the track a ton. I know that's sort of in the bias for the past, couple of weeks. And I'm going to definitely move some horses around and take any sort of closers sort of and move them to the backside of my tickets and really move speed horses up.
Yeah, DJ Vasquez saying that he thinks that Drayden Van Dyke would have been a better fit on McKenzie.
Agreed. Yeah. I don't tend to think in West Coast jock terms because I don't play a lot of West Coast tracks, but I would imagine that would be a better fit.
I still think that Drayden's in Baffert's doghouse. He must have done something. Is.
Ever since he fell off 8 rings, I haven't seen him on a Baffert mount. But yeah, I agree with Mark. I think that we already did the first half of the ticket in Wednesday's show or whatever day it was. Some of that may change for me tomorrow. I kind of restructure my ticket based on today. But Santa Anita doesn't really change dramatically overnight. It's not like Keeneland or maybe Saratoga where you can have day-to-day biases. Santa Anita is generally all both surfaces. And I'm probably going to favor horses to the inside a little as well. So I'll be going back through and combing over some of that and some thoughts in the chat, I'm sure, as we go.
Yeah, what's the race that you guys are most looking forward to tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Probably number 1 is the sprint, number 2 is the mile.
Yeah, I was gonna say the sprint.
The dirt mile. The sprint is number 1, and the number 2 is the dirt mile.
Yeah, dude, I am so interested now in what the heck is gonna happen.
Yeah, I think from a fan perspective, it's the sprint. From a wagering perspective, it's probably Distaff, where I think I can get a decent price against Midnight Bisou.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those 3 races, the dirt mile is, I think, where I'm going to try and get my dirt miles. I'm going to try to get my value. I know we talked a little bit about the dirt mile already, but I think that I know everybody is on the Omaha Beach.
Chipper, right?
Everybody's on the Omaha Beach train, but I really think that this is going to be your best chance to get some good value, especially if Omaha Beach takes a ton of money and somebody like Improbable floats out. I mean, I will bet Improbable at like 4-1 with 2.
How about Blue Chipper?
Sure.
That is the appropriate answer.
That was the appropriate answer. Yeah.
But with no, now that the case for Thais, or whatever the fuck Chase called it, is gone, I think Mirth gets pretty interesting in the air. And Sister Charlie's obviously still first to beat, but all of a sudden you get another lone speed situation that could be dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an A lone C type thing for me, where I think I'm just, I started getting cute and we started talking about it. We're talking about Basilica, and I was talking about Mississippi, and who else did I have on here? Oh, and then I had Mirth as well. I think I'm just gonna go Sister Charlie and Mirth and just go with it. I might even play like an exacta with just those 2 horses, especially if Mirth floats up a little. I think that might be a way to get some value out of there.
Yeah, and not to jump subjects or anything, but David Mayer in the chat, why are there so many bombs today? Is there a really valid reason for all the bombs today? And I would just say a couple things. First off, there's definitely very, very, very speed favoring, and there's a lot of horses that were favorites who were a little bit more off the pace types, especially a lot of the Europeans. So I think that tended to put some horses that you wouldn't normally think about, some more pricier horses, towards the front end. I also would say the other thing that I think is we're used to playing, your average whatever Saturday card where there are 2 or 3 contenders in every race, and then it drops off real quickly. In Breeders' Cup, that list of live horses is just much wider. So yeah, you're getting 10 or 12 to 1 and the 3rd or 4th choice, but this is the Breeders' Cup. You can get 20 or so to 1 on a lot of races on multiple G1 winners. It just happens to be that the pool of talent here is a lot deeper, and you're more likely to find those prices and have them be live just because there's more talent pool here. There's this is sort of the champions of the champions. It's divisional championships, if you will, for horse racing. So yeah, this is what happens all the time with the Breeders' Cup and what makes it very, very, very fun.
Yeah, I think that's about right. It's also juveniles, 2-year-old horses with a limited form, subject to rapid improvements or rapid, bounces sometimes, or regressions. They're trying things first time, routing or sprinting or 2 turns, and oftentimes you just don't know how they're going to handle it. So there is an inherent level of unpredictability in that. So I think that's a big part of it. I think the other part is the fact that the Europeans did not perform today, which kind of inherently led to a lot of Americans going off at larger prices than they otherwise would have. But yeah, I think that you're right. It is there are no slouches, there are no toss outs in Breeders' Cup races. More often than not, everybody that's here deserves to be here based on something they've done in the past. So it's always a competitive. Today is a day that a lot of the logicals just didn't fire their best shot, and a lot of horses went off at prices longer than they normally would have just due to the strength of the perceived favorites.
So yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think those Euros not firing at all in the turf races really spiced up the prices on some of those turf races. Um, I can't really explain what happened in the juvenile since uh, I yeah I thought that that was the play of the day was getting through Dennis's moment. I thought like my whole goal for the day. I mean, I had those different spots where I had prices that I liked, but my whole goal to the day is no matter what, be live to Dennis's moment to something, and if I'm not live, then play a double out of Dennis's moment, and that all just blew up in my face.
Yeah, I ended up with, and honestly, it's one of those things of if Dennis's moment becomes a bankroll management, you were a moron 101 type situation. I had about a $2,500 betting budget on the day, and I probably had 1,000 of that going through Dennis's moment. So I got way too over aggressive on a horse that was a 2-year-old. Like you know. But I very much played it the same way. I assumed Dennis's moment was a lock. I wanted to be live coming in, live going out, have my money flowing through that horse. But there's a point where it gets over the top, and yeah, I found that point.
So David's also asking, how do Korean horses usually fare in the U.S.? Has there been?
Well, considering
Go ahead.
there's never been a Korean Breeders' Cup winner. But also, horse racing in Korea is only about 3 or 4 years old. Korea is a very, very new market to horse racing. The Koreans are very competitive with the Japanese because the Japanese are big into horse racing. The Koreans have gotten big into horse racing. It's become a thing there now. So you're seeing the Koreans now showing up at the Kentucky shows and buying the Kentucky auctions and spending big money on horses. So the idea of a Korean horse running at the Breeders' Cup is a very new thing. So we don't have a lot of history to draw from. So we'll see. Let's put it that way.
The horse, that was an expensive horse, right? Blue Chipper is like what, $250,000-$300,000 purchase?
Yeah, I want to say $250,000.
He's a Kentucky bred.
Yeah, he's a Kentucky bred. He's got good pedigree too. So
like, yeah, it's just like how like in Seoul they have KFCs, you know.
Oh, Josh. It's been a long day, man.
It has. You guys got anything else you gonna talk about before we sign off?
Well, first off, I beat Caleb in a tournament. That's always a good thing. There's a first time for everything.
Yeah, Stable Duel. If you aren't doing it, it's free for today today's over. So tomorrow, basically daily fantasy sports for horse racing. You can win money tomorrow, I think, if you place in the top something or other. I'm not plugging it necessarily. Joined in because it's free and I like free. And it's all right. So check it out if you want to or don't. But yeah, campaign did me a little bit rough in that first race, and Mark got me today.
I think I don't know if there's anybody else. I know Dave was playing he's gonna be playing in that Exacta Box tournament tomorrow on horse tourneys. I don't know. Were you gonna hop in there, Caleb? Or was anybody else gonna play in that?
I was leaning towards I do them, but I think this one was a higher buy-in, and I wasn't that interested in joining.
Yeah, I might jump in a cheaper tournament, but I don't think I'm.
Yeah, I won't be in any tournaments besides that free one. I mean, the free one was actually very fun. It's got that sort of fantasy sports vibe for horse racing is kind of neat. But I'll be pretty much just just my normal wagering.
All right, I have one last thing that I do want to share with everybody.
No, this can go nowhere but down.
Just give me a second.
I mean, I'm seriously sitting here wearing White Claw or drinking White Claws while wearing a Run Happy shirt. You know, I mean, what worse can happen to my day?
I just want everybody to get a nice look and a nice an update our boy, the wolf in the wheelchair. So we'll just go ahead and toss that up there. It's our boy the wolf taking a selfie of himself in the bathroom with a back brace on. I believe he's also got a walking stick that may or may not be there. But we wish you well, Chase. Enjoy your pain pills and your whatever else you got going on there.
He went to shower 2 hours ago, and we haven't heard from him since.
Yeah, we're about ready to throw out the search and rescue to go drag him out of the bathroom.
But all right, guys. Well, you know where to find us. We'll be here in Discord. Hit us up with any questions or anything you got, any comments, and good luck everyone tomorrow.